How you doing? Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. I hope your week's going well. Um, I wanted to say a few words about it's an old issue really, an old subject, and that is that when a fighter has a good win or maybe a few good wins in a row, suddenly they become an all-time great. Even though their career may just be getting started. Suddenly they can beat all the greats in the history of boxing, the whole, whatever it is, 135, 140 years of the gloved era. Suddenly they are, compared to the absolute greats, not just favourably, but it is assumed by most, and not always just the casuals, that they could beat the all-time greats. Well, we've had a few examples of this lately. Tyson Fury is an obvious example. Tyson Fury is a very, very good fighter, very good heavyweight. Might be the best of his era, might be, because he hasn't beaten Usyk yet, he hasn't beaten Joshua. But he's a good fighter. He's a very, very good fighter. Went over to Germany, beat Klitschko. I mean, Klitschko was knocking on a bit, but he was undefeated in 10 years, nearly 10 years. So, yeah, it's good achievement. Wilder was undefeated. Fury went to America, had those 3 fights with him. But the truth of the matter is that there are still people he hasn't beaten in this era. Anthony Joshua, it doesn't matter whether Joshua's had 2 defeats on his record. Tyson Fury hasn't beaten him. And it's not a given that he would beat him. I would make Fury the favourite over Joshua, but you got to go out there and win it. You got to go out there and do it yourself. Doesn't matter what other people have done. Doesn't matter that Andy Ruiz beat Joshua. It doesn't matter that Usyk beat Joshua. You can't say, well, he lost to so and so, so why should I fight? Well, what do you mean? It doesn't necessarily follow that you'd win. It doesn't necessarily follow that you'd beat the guy. You got to do it yourself. You don't, dick ride other people's achievements, or you shouldn't if you're worth anything. So he needs to beat Joshua and he needs to beat Usyk, because Usyk beat Joshua. Usyk's a brilliant fighter, still pretty new to the heavyweight division, but he's got 3 of those belts. And Fury will say, yeah, I gave up the belts. Why do I want to beat this? He called him a middleweight. I mean, Usyk hasn't been a middleweight since he was, in short trousers. Ridiculous thing to say. So no, I don't think it's a given that Fury is the best of his era. He's certainly not the best heavyweight of all time, which I've heard. Do people know anything about the history of boxing? People that make these statements. Do they know anything about the history of boxing? Do they know about, Joe Lewis's 12-year undefeated, reign as champion? Muhammad Ali winning the title 3 times and all the defences he made. Do they know about, if you go way, way back to people like Sam Langford, do they know anything about Harry Wills? Do they know anything about, even Jack Johnson, who was a big name? Do they know anything about any of this stuff? Have they ever read a magazine or a book on boxing history? And don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert, I'm not a historian. I read things, I'm interested in the history of the sport. I'm not a historian. I'm not an expert. I don't even know what the word expert means, because people in boxing are experts in different areas. Some might be good historians. Some might be good trainers. Obviously, some might be good fighters. But it doesn't necessarily follow that you're an expert in all areas. But I know, I've read a bit, and I do know a bit about the history of the sport. Going way, way back to John L. Sullivan, because I pay attention to it. Now, some people don't. Clearly they don't, because they make ludicrous statements like Tyson Fury, who has only had 5 world title fights, 4 wins and a draw. They make the statement that guy is the best heavyweight of all time. And that he's, more to the point, that he's proved it. He's not even come close to proving it. And this is not a slight against Tyson Fury. He's a very, very good fighter, a very, very good heavyweight. No argument there at all. What he's achieved, it's laudable, it's great. But he's not the greatest heavyweight of all time. Nowhere close to it has he proved it. Nowhere close. And only the most, like I say, the most appalling sort of fanboys or the most ignorant boxing casuals would make a statement like that. Now, moving on from Fury, let's take another example. It's a slightly different example, but it's how bells and whistles and dancing rah-rah girls can create an image, an illusion that should be resisted. And that is Shakur Stevenson. Now, Shakur Stevenson scored a great win against Oscar Valdez. He handed Valdez his first defeat. And suddenly this guy's beating, Floyd Mayweather. He's beating Sweet Pea. He's beating, Sugar Ray Leonard. I've heard so many people say, this guy's amazing. He's brilliant. He's better than Mayweather was at that age and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, hang on a minute. Let's put the brakes on here a minute. Great win over Valdez. Very good win over Jamel Herring. Okay. But Shakur Stevenson is 24. Does he have skills, by the truckload? Yes. He's a very, very good fighter. A very good fighter. Especially for the age of 24. But give the kid a chance. I mean, put the brakes on this. Oh, he's so amazing. He'd beat anyone. Honestly, Benny Leonard, Roberto Duran, he'd handle them all, people get carried away. And, if you're going to get carried away, I don't know. I mean, I've probably done it myself, especially when I was younger. Mike Tyson, I remember Mike Tyson before he was beat. I thought the guy was unbeatable. I thought the only person that can beat Mike Tyson is Mike Tyson. Maybe you can still make a case for that, an argument. Roy Jones is by far the best, probably the best fighter I've seen in my lifetime. I mean, he did everything unconventionally. There was nothing textbook about him, and it was all on reflexes and athleticism. But at his peak, I thought, no one's going to beat this guy. If you'd have told me Roy Jones would have 9 defeats on his record when he retired, I would never, ever have believed you. And if Roy Jones had retired after the John Ruiz fight, some people would be saying he's the greatest ever. And you know what? I'm not saying he would be, but you could put that argument into the pot, because of the stature he held at the time. You can only beat what's in front of you. But Shakur Stevenson's 24. Give the kid a chance. Let him have his career. At least Fury's retired. So he'll come back. There's no way on earth he's not going to fight again. He'll come back. But at least we can make a judgment on his career now because he says he's retired. But Shakur Stevenson's got so much more to do, so much more. And, he's got brilliant skills. He may go on to be an all-time great. To be honest with you, I'm leaning towards thinking he'll probably be a Hall of Famer. But, you've got to let people do more than just have a few good wins before you can say that they would beat everyone, before you can say that they are, right up there with the absolute greats. And those are just 2 examples. And, someone like Canelo, as suspicious as I am of Canelo and his training method, shall we say, at least he's taking on all comers, and he's he's really making a concerted effort to prove that he is the best of his era and one of the best of all time. He's not ducking anyone. He's going after people, winning belts, unifying belts inside a year and divisions. I have grave reservations about Canelo, and I'm sad to say that because of the whole Eddie Reynoso setup and the PEDs and all that, but he is going after greatness. So those are just a few thoughts, a few random examples. I mean, I could give others, but I won't go on and on. What do you think? I suppose it's inevitable. People are going to overrate all sorts of fighters, or jump the gun when it comes to handing down, all-time great plaudits. But those are just a few examples and a few thoughts. Leave your comments below. I'd be interested to hear them. And yeah, thanks for watching as always. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you're already subscribed, thanks very, very much. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week. And until then, until we speak again, take care of yourselves as always. Bye for now.